Masterclass is on leveraging generative AI for Edtech by Mr. Srikantan Sankaran. Mr. Srikantan Sankaran is a machine type communications architect at Microsoft. He has 21 years of professional experience in the IT industry that spans different functions and roles, such as Principal SDE, Senior Cloud Solution Architect, Principal Technical Evangelist, working with ISVs, unicorns, and product companies in India to architect, build, and deploy their products on Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Productivity Cloud. He has earlier worked at SAIL, Systems and Components, Uday India, ISA Consultancy Services, and COTS R&D India. He is an alumni of Institute of Technology, Banaras, Hindu University, Varanasi. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Extremely happy to see you all and interact with you. Now, I hope, please acknowledge if I'm audible across on the other side.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you about the recent innovations in the space of AI and how it can lead us to transformative experiences. And I'll try to focus my talk in towards the area of education as a sector. So I want to start off by saying that the future is here. So I think we are in a very interesting era where we have a generation where we are able to have machines that are able to mimic human behavior. See, all along we had this notion of an autopilot where you traditionally build those machine learning models, okay, and then you train it on your data, and then it comes up, it has its intelligence, and it's able to come up with predictions and sort of addresses scenarios that helps you to sort of further your business. But they typically run in autopilot mode where they continuously run, and there is no sort of there is no human sort of interacting very closely with it and sort of being keeping pace with it and doing those kind of things. But with the advent of artificial general intelligence, for the first time, we have a capability where a machine is able to mimic a human behavior. And it also very productively supplements how the human can actually be productive on his day-to-day work. It's almost like I have an expert beside me who's sort of working in close tandem with me, and it's able to supplement and add value and make me much more productive when I go about my daily job. Okay, so that's where I think the core message that I want to convey, the fact that with artificial general intelligence, we have a slew of capabilities and which were hitherto not possible using the traditional AI models. And those actually are made possible by virtue of this particular technology. And inherent in all this, what is powering all these experiences are those terms I'm sure you must have heard of. It is about GPT-3, it's about Chat GPT and all that. So these are actually large language models which have been trained by over the data of the entire planet. Okay, so they carry that kind of data in their minds, and they have been trained on that, and they have the ability for someone to actually interact with them straight away and then sort of derive some experiences. And where they also sort of differ from the traditional approach is that you don't need to go through any training exercise yourself to sort of interact with it and derive experiences from it. Because it is already pre-trained, I can actually go ahead and sort of talk to it, and then it's able to come back with a lot of responses. Okay, but that also means that we need to contextualize this particular capability so that for some use cases where I want to merely ask some question as an end user or as a consumer or as an individual, it's sort of good for me to be equipped for it to sort of respond to me in some terms, and then I'm able to supplement my knowledge with that and sort of go about doing my work. But in some cases, in the context of a particular industry vertical, I want it to sort of take cognizance of what data I have to offer. Okay, and then in the context of which it needs to sort of come back to me and sort of supplement and sort of boost my productivity and all that. So these are some different aspects that we need to keep in mind as we go along this journey of artificial general intelligence. So let me take, and in fact, when I say something is a digital companion, so we're saying that it is also a co-pilot. Okay, it's almost like it's a co-pilot. The emphasis also is in the fact that the co-pilot is never really driving. It's always the pilot who is in command. And this pilot is actually supplemented and helped by the co-pilot. So that also I want to emphasize on the fact that it is not meant to, I mean, typically there's a lot of concern that, hey, is it going to supplant humans who are working in various aspects? How we look at it is that it's going to make the person who's already working much more productive and much more efficient by virtue of having this at his or her disposal. So let me take the first example of Chat GPT. And I'm sure you folks would have used it, but I guess there's no way of asking for a show of hands. But I'm probably could just raise your hand in case of if you have actually worked on ChatGPT and then you have a flavor of what it has to actually offer. I'll take that as an assumption before I move on to the subsequent slides. So that would help. Sure, I see some of those hands raised. Yeah, but let me sort of, given that for the uninitiated, I just want to give a brief background. I just mentioned about the fact that, so these are large language models or machine learning models, which are trained with the data pertaining to the world, and then they carry those insights with it. Okay, and then, so these can be used in our day-to-day applications. Okay, and then while these have been in vogue for a couple of years, but still the power of these were not brought forth. Okay, and then while they existed, no one really knew what they had, what power they actually possess. It's only with the advent of an application called ChatGPT, which was actually introduced sometime in November last year by OpenAI. By the way, OpenAI is the for non-profit organization, which is actually into the business of creating machine learning models that could benefit humanity at large. And Microsoft has actually partnered with OpenAI to actually build and host those huge models, which need supercomputer class capabilities to sort of run those, and then we sort of power those experiences. And in addition, we also sort of help enterprises to not have to worry about standing up such infrastructure of their own to run these models. We actually make it simplified or democratized for them to have an Azure subscription and be able to provision a resource which is going to sort of represent the supercomputer and which hosts this particular model. And then very quickly, they're able to sort of get started with that. So again, coming back to this point that only with ChatGPT coming to the fray is when people could really touch and feel this particular capability. Because there's a user interface where they just type in as though it's a chat window, and then they're able to interact with it. And then they're sort of surprised and amazed to see what all it has to sort of share with them and the insight that it actually brings to the table. Okay, so that's why we say that, hey, the reality is now, and then we know that there is a lot of potential and there's a lot of buzz in this industry right now to be able to sort of experience and sort of build on these capabilities. So having said that, so I mentioned about ChatGPT, which OpenAI built and through which we know what it has to offer. And then we have incorporating these capabilities into all the Microsoft products as well. For example, you're looking at the Bing, a screenshot from the Bing search experience. So you see this particular tab called the chat window, which is sort of come up probably a couple of a month or more past. Okay, and then what it does is that it gives you a ChatGPT-like experience. It is powered using GPT-4, by the way. Okay, so you see that as opposed to in the past when I used to sort of enter a search query, it would give me a sort of set of results. Okay, and then possibly the answer to my questions reside in 2 or more of those results. And I would end up sort of clicking on the first and second document, and then I piece together all the information together myself, and then I sort of get my answers. But with the ability of the Bing chat, which is powered using chat with the power of GPT-4 behind the scenes, you see that I typed in a question saying that, hey, can you generate a standard operating position for a fictitious bank that provides credit card services? Because I need to help my agents know what kind of protocols to follow and how they should sort of handle those calls. And then you see that instead of giving me just links which I need to refer to, it composes a response in its natural language. Okay, so that I'm sorry. It composes the response and pieces together all the information. And then it also gives me citations. So wherever there's a key remark being made, it actually gives a hyperlink, which I can click upon. And then it takes me into more detailed information of the source from where the Bing chat was able to sort of compose that particular response. So it's actually a far cry from how it used to be in the past, where as opposed to just wading through links, I get a response to what I'm looking for after the engine is doing the hard work of crunching all the data behind the scenes and giving me a response which sort of answers my question and obviates the need to have back and forth conversations before a question gets completely answered. So let me move on to another example. So the first one was a Copilot for the web experience using Bing chat. So now I'm going to talk to you about the browser itself. Okay. So we have the Edge browser that Microsoft provides, and then there is a beta version of it which lights up a feature called the Bing Companion. So in fact, I'm not sure if this is sort of blocking your view, but let me minimize this. I'm getting okay. So I'm on a particular website, which is I went to the NIT's website and then went through the page where we talk of the partnership with various other organizations to offer various solutions. And then you see that I opened up the Bing chat, the Bing Companion app on the right-hand side. And then when I click on the Insights tab, you see that it gives me an automatic view of the whole page represented in the Q&A format. So it could be that when I peruse through all the contents, the way that I typically go about sort of consuming data is that while I have a web page, probably if things are tailored in the form of a Q&A kind of an approach, it makes it easy for me to sort of go through that. Okay, and then so when I scroll through that, you'll find that towards the bottom, it gives me other links which I can refer to in the context of the page that I'm in, and then where I can quickly go to and get additional information and be really well informed on that particular subject. Okay, so now let me move on to the next slide. So this is another tab in the Bing Companion where I clicked on the chat, and you see the top right here. I'm hovering on my mouse over there. So when I click on the chat tab there, it exposes a particular way from where I can actually use OpenAI to help me summarize and sort of understand the content on this page. So I'm on this particular page on NIT website where it pertains to the different programs that it offers. Okay, and then you see that it's a combination of a lot of web parts, and then a lot of images and a lot of textual content. And probably that's one way of consuming content. But let's say I want to sort of quickly understand without having to scroll through the entire page. I go to the right-hand side, and you see that in the blue, I have written saying that, hey, can you summarize the programs mentioned on this page? So because I've invoked this particular companion from the context of this web page, it is able to go to that particular page, and then it gives me a quick summary of all that it has to offer. Imagine that I need to head for a meeting, okay, and let's say it's for an exam that I need to go to as a student, and probably there's this particular chapter which I need to reverse in the last moment, okay, which happens so often these days. So I can actually use a Bing Companion app and then ask it to sort of summarize this particular page for me, so that at least I carry the top key points from this particular subject and carry them into my mind before I actually head to write that examination. It's just a very simple use case that I could think of in the spur of the moment. But essentially the fact that you use OpenAI, which is powering the ability to summarize and sort of explain the content on a page, and then I can actually move forward with it very easily. So it's so democratized and so easy for someone to quickly leverage these capabilities and be able to be productive on the go. And another example of that is that, let's say I'm on this site, which is Money Control, and then I've gone to the Microsoft page on this particular website. It gives me, you see that I have this peers section where it tells me how different companies fare with each other in comparison. So what do you see that I have sort of highlighted that using a mouse, and then when I click on it, it sort of contextually automatically transfers it to the Bing Companion on the right-hand side. And then it tells me, hey, I think I have a snapshot of what you're looking at on this page. So what do you want to do with it? So I'm asking it to explain what it sees on that particular page. And then it tells me, hey, I think it shows the information of how Apple has performed vis-a-vis Microsoft and how each of them is doing. And then so it's so easy for me to contextually, in whichever page I am, I'm able to derive insights and then look at a particular section and use OpenAI to sort of give me more insights on what actually I'm seeing on that particular page. Okay, so this is how we're calling this the co-pilot for the browser, which individual users can actually leverage to that benefit. So like I give an example of a co-pilot for any user. So with the capabilities of OpenAI being sort of aligned with different verticals. So we have a co-pilot for a lawyer and teacher and different personas. I think the list is quite endless. And the capabilities that the platform provides, it makes it easy for you to sort of verticalize your solutions and be able to add value irrespective of which domain we're talking of. An example in point is that, you know of Microsoft 365, which is our Office suite of products. And recently we announced the fact that we are integrating all the OpenAI capabilities into these so that it can actually take the productivity capabilities of this software to altogether different level. Okay, and then, so let me just quickly play a short demo video of this. So the logo that you see is that of the Copilot in Microsoft 365, and that could be invoked in any of the Microsoft Office applications, and then you can interact with these models using OpenAI. So that's the Microsoft Teams, where the transcript is automatically captured. And then if I join late into the call, I can ask you to summarize what was discussed so far. So easily I can get on top of what's happening on the meeting. So now let me come on to the next set of slides, which deal with how different enterprises could build a co-pilot for themselves for the verticals. Okay, but to do that, we need to have the foundational elements. So the foundational elements here are the different large language model that I spoke to you about. I think we discussed about GPT-3 and Chat GPT-3. And apart from these two, we also have two other models called the Codex, which is geared towards developers who want to, let's say you're a developer who's building a web application. And then let's say you use tools like VS Code as an IDE or Visual Studio or JetBrains or whatever. And then there is a capability in GitHub called the Copilot, which is available as an add-in, and then develop. And so all that is actually the large language model for code running there. And then that is powering those experiences for developers by which they type in a particular comment in the language that they know of. And then automatically the code, which is the boilerplate code required to implement that, gets automatically captured and brought into the IDE. And then the developer just needs to sort of make some minor decorative changes to the code to make sure that it integrates well with the module that they are building. So that's an extremely powerful capability. And in fact, this has been here for about 2 years or so. And I've actively used on the project that I've worked on way back 2 years back. And then they're extremely useful. You can do things like converting code from Python to Java and vice versa. You can change between different languages. You can actually have a piece of code that is written. And let's say there's some kind of attrition and the person left. And then the next person who needs to pick it up is able to use this Copilot to be able to re-engineer the documentation back and explain to him what the code does, so that it's so easy for him to sort of get on top of what needs to be done. Okay, so that's a quick tour of what Codex is about. So DALL-E is the third kind of class of model where it takes in natural language as an input, and then it actually generates images on the fly, as opposed to doing a Bing or a Google search for images, and those images pre-exist. But in this case, when you use DALL-E, it can actually create those images pixel by pixel on the fly based on how you describe in natural language what the image ought to be. So let's say you type in a particular statement, and based on that, you get the first set of results. You can actually further tweak that representation. You can say, hey, now I want this particular image that I've created to be in watercolor, okay, and then probably the predominant color should be blue, for example. So once you when you specify all that, it goes back and sort of re-engineers the whole image and comes back with you with a representation that denotes what actually you're asking of it. Okay, so these are the 4 types of models that are available to enterprises on Azure, which is available from OpenAI. And ChatGPT, as we all know, so we can actually, in Azure, we can use it to build verticalized chat-based AI assistants that are geared to light up different scenarios. For example, it could be an assistant for end customers who want to get their questions answered, or they want to obtain recommended next best actions based on, let's say, they have a car loan approval that they have application that they have filed in, and then they want to know where they actually in the process of getting the loan and what they need to do next so that they're able to complete the process successfully. Okay, so these are just some few examples that I wanted to share. So the net, what I'm trying to say is that the ChatGPT application lets you verticalize your solutions. You can create one for education as well. In fact, we have a lot of, I want to showcase another example of how Khan Academy have used GPT-4 to actually extremely powerful learning experiences. I'll talk about that. So so the notion of steerability is extremely important. The fact that you take ChatGPT as the generalized power, and then you verticalize it for various industry representations, and then derive benefits from that. And it is all powered using the GPT-3 3.5 turbo large language models behind the scenes. So let me take an example in the for the education sector. So an example could be that I am the faculty of my class, and then I need to roll out a class test on a particular topic. So the example that you see here is extract from the playground where I actually created this example, and then I have been sort of running these examples by. And then you see that I'm qualifying, saying that, hey, I want you to generate, I'm asking OpenAI this question. I want you to generate a question in the fill in the blanks format from the content that I've actually pasted below. Okay, so this is the topic on which I want to have the class test. So when you look at the Q&A section, I'm giving it one example, saying that when I say fill in the blanks, it should be in this way. I ask you a question, what is the difference between absorption and adsorption? And then I would expect that you will respond the way that I've represented, with those blanks underneath which needs to be filled in by the student. And then second and third questions are what I actually post OpenAI. Okay, and then based on the example that I gave and the content that I actually gave it in before that, it is able to come back with the next set of questions now for the fill in the blanks, which I can actually roll out to the class for the class test. Okay, so this is just a simple example of how OpenAI can be used in so many imaginative ways to be able to generate the content tailored to different personas. So I'm a faculty in this case. I could say it should be a fill in the blanks, or it could be say that I want to generate a Q&A on this particular topic. Give me top 5 questions on this particular topic because I need to roll a class test down the line. So and then the OpenAI comes back with those questions, and then I sort of set the ball in motion by running through the exam. Or let's say I could be a student who says that, hey, I think I missed the class yesterday because I was unwell, and I know that the Newton's 3 laws of motions were taught. And then I can ask OpenAI, hey, can you actually list down what are the 3 laws of motion? And then it comes back with it actually gleans through all the information that you have. Of course, you need to build an application which is able to glean all the necessary information and give OpenAI with the summary or the core information based on which it should generate the natural language response. So I can say that as a student, give me the key aspects of Newton's 3 laws of motion. It comes back with the listing all the 3, and then I could say I want to understand law number 2 in more detail and give an example as a part of the whole thing. And then it'll go back and OpenAI will come back with a more descriptive way of sort of explaining that particular topic in such a way that the student is able to understand it. So it's all up to the user to sort of be imaginative with how they're prompting OpenAI to come back with the responses. And then it's able to sort of address those requirements and be able to tailor the content and improve productivity of different personas. Okay, I give an example of a student of a faculty. It could also be a parent who said that, hey, I think my ward misses class yesterday. Can you explain to me in my vernacular, for example? I understand and speak Hindi. So can you tell me in Hindi what Newton's 3 laws of motions are? Because I need to explain it to my sort of son or daughter. And then it comes back with a response. So all the things like languages and all those barriers are just don't exist. It's able to sort of do all those transformations and be able to get back to you all that information. So that in a quick summary is what this particular example or this particular slide is for and how it relates to education. Okay, so this is an example of a scenario from Khan Academy. I've actually played a YouTube video and I've taken a screenshot from that. So this is a personalized tutor for an individual student and who is learning mathematics. Okay, and then let me move this because it's blocking my view of the screen. Yeah, that's better. You see that I'm posed with this particular chapter, and then the application is asking me to solve this particular problem. And then what you don't see on the screen is that the first step I made some mistake. I sort of didn't open the brackets the right way, and then made some errors along the way. And then it said, hey, I think you made some mistake, and I think you got some understanding wrong about how the brackets need to be handled in the whole equation. And then it's actually it's like it's interactive, and then the person can just go through those motions, and then it can be very innovative in terms of saying that, hey, can you tell me what is the game that you like? And let's say you say football or cricket, and then it sort of gives an example of how to understand how to deal with these brackets, and sort of gives an example of a sport or something to keep the student very engaged and sort of maintain their interest in that particular chapter. So in the interest of time, I'm sort of just showing you this particular slide and saying that, hey, Khan Academy have used GPT-4 to power this kind of an application, which is a personalized tutor for students. And it's actually extremely powerful. You can go through, I'll share a link to the video after the call, and probably you could take a look at it at your leisure as well. Let me take a look at the time. Yeah, so it's 4:25. Okay. So like I said, GPT-4 is available in OpenAI. And now actually for example, we announced in 14th of March on OpenAI that GPT-4 is available. And in just a short matter of time, actually, we made sure that the GPT-4 model was packaged and made available for enterprises on Azure. Okay. A key aspect of what GPT-4 is about. See, we spoke of GPT-3, where it understands English. It understands textual information, natural language input. It is able to reason over a large amount of textual data and come back with responses in its own way, which is what artificial general intelligence is about. And then, but with GPT-4, we are actually taking to a different level. Okay, it's not just restricted to text anymore. I can actually give it an image. Okay, and then I can say, I'm uploading this particular image to you, and I'm asking GPT-4, can you tell me what happens if I cut that particular thread in the picture? Okay, and then you see that it's able to infer what is there in this picture, and it tells me that the balloons are going to fly away. Okay, so it's like I said earlier, probably in ways inconceivable so far, we are able to see the power of AI and artificial general intelligence, where it can think and act like humans and be able to sort of be productive and sort of supplement them, and sort of it helps. It is there's a lot to be gained from that. Let me take another example. you see that here I'm saying that I have this boxing gloves hanging out there. And then let's say I remove the ball from the plank, what is going to happen? So it's able to infer that, yeah, I think the plank is going to get raised and then it's going to hit the boxing gloves as well. So that's another example of GPT-4 in action. And look at this one. So there's also an amount of humor that it can actually bring to the table. So I'm saying that I'm showing this picture where we have a state of the art, probably it's an iPhone or it's a modern, it's a smartphone. And then you see that someone has connected a VGA sort of adapter and cable to it. So I asked GPT-4, hey, can you tell me something which is very humorous about this particular picture or something that is funny about it? And then you see that it says the humor is in the picture is about the absurdity of plugging a large outdated VGA connector into a small modern smartphone charging port. Okay, so it's able to understand all of this and be able and take images as well, and then derive insights and share those with you. And then you can embed those into your applications as well. Okay, so that sort of concludes the presentation that I had. But the last thing that I wanted to show is that recently we built a showcase application, which for in the field of education. Let me just log in and show you the landing page. Okay, I give an example of how conversational AI on top of digitized education content could be used to handle different personas like faculty, students, and teachers. So this is an application where I can actually speak into, you see that it's got a chat GPT-like interface. Okay, and then let's say I'm a person who speaks and in Hindi and I want to interact with this particular application. But what is happening behind the scenes is that I have a lot of content that is sourced from Diksha just for the showcase here. And then for different variety of subjects, yeah.
We are not able to see your screen.
Oh, I see. Sorry. I think I missed. I had shared only my deck and then this was not shared. Just give me a moment. Yeah, this one. Sure. Okay, so I'm on this website, which we built as a showcase for one of the events recently. And so here I'm going to, you see that it already prompting me with a lot of questions ready-made, so that to get started, I can click on any of this and then it sort of plays that particular question and then goes through the backend, picks up all the content that we actually index from the Diksha website, and then it's able to extract the appropriate pages where the response exists and then place it back to me in my own language. So for example, I'm going to sort of interact with it. न्यूटन के तीनों नियमों के बारे में समझाइए. So now it's going to the backend and then it's going to extract information. You see that the language detection happened automatically. It took my query in Hindi and it's going to translate that to English because the content is all based in English. It is going to use the AI-powered search to extract the right page where the answer to the question exists. It feeds that to OpenAI, and then OpenAI composes the response. You see that it is. Yeah, I'll not take completely. Okay, so I think that's a quick showcase of how we have built a sample application which uses OpenAI, supplements the capabilities of OpenAI with the ability of a search tool, which is going to index all those documents and extract relevant pages so that OpenAI can actually compose a response tailored to how the question is being asked and be able to sort of do a great job of responding to that question. So with that, actually, I would want to sort of open the floor for questions and any discussion points.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So yes, I have been following Copilot since a long time, and it's an amazing tool. Was just waiting when it will launch. So I have two specific questions that we have. One is specifically from an higher education standpoint. From an education institute, we require to create a lot of educational content in terms of class notes, lecture notes, training material. Will Copilot be able to help a teacher to create that content as well? Or is it on the roadmap, or are those things a part of it already?
So what we see is that it is already trained with the language of the world. Okay, so when you ask it a particular question, it can probably give you the most complex reasoning of that particular question and give that to you in the form of a document. But that would not suffice to me because it doesn't understand nuances like, hey, this pertains to class grade 12, and this pertains to first year of engineering or whatever. So based on that, there's a gradation in terms of how complex or probably how detailed a particular response ought to be. So it might not understand, hey, what corresponds to what grade. Okay, so which is why I'm saying that it could be just a generalized response, which is answering a particular question or sort of giving you a first shot extract of what it thinks that topic pertains to. But having obtained that, you can still say, I think this is too complex for me. Can you simplify this for me for a sort of class 12 grade? And then you can actually come back with a response which is tailored or sort of factors in those things. So what I'm saying is that you can't just click on a button and the whole thing gets generated. So probably interactively, you'll be able to sort of get insights. And then what I see most likely happening is that you probably pointed to so actually, I'm not an expert on how you actually create this kind of content for colleges. So I don't know what kind of capabilities exist. You need to have some kind of starting point where you have probably a research or some kind of a document from where you want to source information from. And then you say, I want to adapt this for a class 12 or a first class grade in engineering, for example. And probably I'll use this particular tool to some application or intelligence required for me to interact with it and sort of make sure that whatever comes out of it is appropriate for that particular class. It's a long-winded response, but it's definitely possible. But I don't expect it to be an out-of-the-box thing that you can just say, hey, class 12, here you go. Hey, this is for engineering. Hey, here you go. Might not happen. But that's where I see a lot of partners. For example, Khan Academy has built this. So probably I could expect that someone could chip in here and sort of use that technology to create this content and sort of monetize and sort of commercialize it. That is definitely a possibility.
A question specific, like I saw the first explainer video that came out, and in that the question was that lady was preparing for her daughter's I think graduation ceremony or something.
Yeah. Correct.
And she asked, please create a presentation for my daughter's graduation ceremony. These are some of the snippets.
Yes.
She had put in some photographs, some details about her daughter, and automatically there was a very jazzy presentation that was created.
Right.
From that reference, from that video reference, I wanted to ask you, because when I saw that video, I thought that this can be very helpful in an education ecosystem that we are in. And if I can put in some sort of notes, like you rightly said, if I put some sort of notes, if I put in some sort of reference material, and I say, hey, I want to create a lecture presentation for Maslow's laws.
Yes.
Will it be able to do it? That was the question.
Yes. Right. That definitely is possible. So as long as you give those insights and those bullet points, it can actually build on top of that and give it to you. Exactly. Yes, I agree.
All right. Second question is, will it be a part of the O365 education users? So people who are, organizations who are having that O365 education license, will it come to all of them for as a part of the package, or it is a separate revenue or business model that is there?
See, it's a separate SKU, which is saying that this particular SKU is powered using OpenAI. And that's the insight we have at this point. It still the rubber needs to sort of meet the road. It's still early days, and I think things it will evolve. And how it aligns with the education sector, it still remains to be seen. Whether it has to be a separate SKU altogether, or whether the current education SKUs will be powered using OpenAI, I think it's still conjecture. Probably I can check with the engineering team and probably let you know. But I don't have insights at this time.
All right, thank you. Waiting for the
question.
Sure.
I mean, so far what you've shown is how ChatGPT or something like that can create something when prompted to. Can it critique something that you wrote? So for example, if I put a passage and I wanted it to critique it,
yes,
certain areas, what would it use to critique it or provide feedback on? I mean, I've seen it rewrite it.
Yeah.
But can it critique it so that I can learn something from the critique?
Yes, it can.
How does it critique it? I mean, what does it use to critique it?
Yeah, see, it's like you submit your paper to someone and then that person reviews it and they have a point of view and they sort of look at what is represented. And then it could either be on the depth of the content and probably how it varies against the worldly knowledge that it already has. Then it will have a view saying that, hey, I think you state this as the assumption, but I think this particular paper refers to this in a different way. And probably you may be sort of off mark there. And just making this as I'm saying this, but it can definitely have a point of view. Okay, one is it can sort of reason with what you have said and with the worldly knowledge that is already trained upon. And then it can give you a point of view and saying that these are 3 areas. You can say, can you give me 3 points of areas where you think I need to improve? Or can you bring out some factual errors in whatever represented based on your knowledge? You'll come back with that. So I don't have a simple answer to it. Probably give an example, we can try it out and then I can explain that.
Let's say I take a video of a person doing a task. A simple machining an object
Mm.
or, entering data in a screen.
Yeah.
By looking at that video, can it point out the mistakes I made, or what do I need to do differently so that I don't make that mistake?
Yeah, see, at this time, it doesn't take in video or audio as an input. It can only take a textual information as an input. So that's where we are at with that particular technology as point in time. So I'm sure things will evolve. For example, with GPT-4, we are saying that it can take images as an input. So let's say you have a picture of the person at various stages of delivering a particular lecture, and then, or you want to capture the emotions or sentiments, you can take a frame of that and then provide it to GPT-4 and then ask it to determine how the sentiment was, and do you think what his body language was, and whether you think it was positive. I think those things can happen, but video as an input is still not, we are not there with that technology yet. So probably eventually, I suppose it will happen at some point.
Thanks.
And so with regards to your previous question, I would just like add this is, so GPT is like a language completion model. So essentially whatever is the prompt, it will just complete whatever is after those like lines of English. So that's what like the training model is all about. So if you just feed it Shakespeare, it will complete only Shakespeare. So when you say that I would like you to review my letter on ABCD parameters, it will just complete it like the world would complete it. So maybe this would help you understand like how it does the reviews. So.
But I have a question, particularly for higher education, because the question asked here. We create a lot of content and we create it in-house.
Yeah.
The challenge and the pressure we have, particularly in higher education compared to K-12, is plagiarism is a big challenge, right? So business communication knowledge is available all over. NIT does it, everybody does it. So how do we create new content around that or position it? Does ChatGPT or sort of Copilot or all the tools which have been building on top of it do a plagiarism check? Because effectively, if it's finishing the way the world would finish, what is the IP of my content versus somebody else's content or AI generated content, right? So is that something that the system is accounting for at this point or no?
See, that's as more of an application, isn't it? Where an application of this particular technology, and I want to make sure that the creative incentive there is not diluted by a version of plagiarism. So let's say I'm the person who's building that application where the creative abilities can surface. And then probably as a part of the step, there are a lot of things like responsible AI, and which cater to things like discrimination, bias not being there. And then there's an element of originality. So there are libraries already available, which helps you detect, saying that, hey, I think this thing smells of the fact that it was generated using AI. And so there are tools that are available which can be used. And which could be plugged into the overall pipeline of things, and how the last step could be that I want to do a plagiarism check, and then I probably infuse it through that particular model, and that tells me whether it's likelihood that it is sort of lifted from somewhere.
But off the shelf, this is not built in.
No, it's not built in.
I think what you are asking is, if you, whatever it generated, if you put it for a plagiarism check, will it go through?
No, actually, I was doing the reverse. So
The reverse, okay.
I was thinking of a use case with my team. Like, we're building courses on, let's say, product management.
So can you do a plagiarism check on it?
So my team starts developing content from it, because it then speeds up our ability to generate content. Like
Absolutely.
But then the problem is this content was created using the world's content. Now, do I have a check on where I'm taking this content from? And more importantly, if I'm going to monetize it, then I better pay the other person some money, or at least have their blessing.
Many unknown people.
Yeah, many unknown, or I have to have their blessings that can use it. So
No. So are you saying that if you generated this content through a prompt, then is that IP yours or it is somebody else's? Is that what you? Is that one? No. That's the other way around. You're saying it. Obviously, all knowledge in the world is not yours.
Absolutely. So
Right.
no knowledge is mine or yours, right? So
Anybody's.
So for example, I teach business communication as a course. So when I at multiple campuses, so when I pull the information, I source it and I give the requisite cadence to the individual, saying I've taken your thing or whatever. Now, if ChatGPT is picking up this information and completing what I don't know, where is it picking it from? Or if it's doing the citations properly, yes. Is it a free to use citation or is it a paid citation? Right? Today, for example, I'm sorry, going very old school, but the social style model of communication, if I use it, then there's a company called Tracom, right? You buy it from them and then but if I get that knowledge from ChatGPT, it's going to identify that this comes from this. Therefore, Abhishek or MBA Trek, if you're using this information, you better pay somebody, right? Or at least get a license to them or whatever it is. Because I think over a period of time, frameworks, models, and thoughts will also start flowing through this. And a lot of frameworks and thoughts and models are owned by people and it's their IP.
Yeah, but to your point, I think I just want to supplement what I said with this, that when you ask it to generate, let's say I ask it to generate, in fact, that's what happened when I used ChatGPT to generate a SOP for a bank for a particular area. It told me that, hey, I think it'll be unfair for me to generate an SOP because it's all plagiarism stuff and all of that. But what I'm going to give you is just a generalized version of it, okay, and for a fictitious bank. And then it's up, but you need to make sure that, you need to understand that this is not the best and only way to represent it, and probably need to look a lot of things need to be looked at in addition to this, but here is a generalized view of what the SOP should be, and then of course you need to verify with things on the ground. So it makes those kind of disclaimers and make sure that you don't sort of go overboard with what it has to suggest, and then it tempers what it has to offer, and that's as far as it goes, and to make sure it's responsible. And it also does things like you can't when you ask in some personal information saying that, hey, this particular bank, do you think they're doing it in a particular way, and then you ask her to generate some document, you'll say that, hey, I think I'm not supposed to be doing all of that. Okay, it sort of calls those things out, saying that it will be unfair of me to sort of do that. And in case I'm a candidate who's applying for a position in an organization, and I give it my resume and say, can you generate a covering letter for me so that I can actually make my candidature stronger? It comes back saying that, hey, I think that'll be unfair of me to do so because you're putting others who don't have access to technology such as mine at a disadvantage on that account. And then it politely declines from actually doing that. So it has all those checks and balances in place to make sure that it doesn't sort of does things that are probably not in good taste, or probably not, it sort of discriminates upon others. Those things are already in place.
And I think to add on, Abhishek, to what you are saying, there's another area as well wherein I feel it is very important to see this is now, since online education on digital university or online courses are now allowed. And in fact, I worked with a university to create that entire online content. So tomorrow, if more and more universities will get an opportunity to start online degree courses, they will have to create a huge amount of content. So I have to create an entire 3-year content for BBA, 3-year content for BCA, 10 university using the same tool. Now, one of the key criteria that UGC has put into that is that whatever content you are creating has to be mapped with your own curriculum. It has to be plagiarism free, and then you put it onto the LMS that you are using. So coming to your, maybe your portal is that. So what I want to look at, and it is a feedback or the suggestion or we would like to see as an education or edtech companies, is that if 10 universities are using to create certain set of presentations or content for different set of courses, then those all that IP belong to that particular university, or how will it work like? Because going ahead, online education is going to be big, and 10 universities creating same content for BBA is going to be same, or it is going to be different, or how that IP has to be managed. That we are looking at from an edtech perspective.
I think it's a good question for the regulator.
Yeah, definitely. I had to do
No, but
plagiarism
what
check
is
on
the
all
answer
courses
to the
anyway.
question that if I gave a prompt and it gave a para and I call that my courseware now?
There is
Yes,
no answer
correct.
to the question.
Sorry?
There is no answer to this question right now.
You still have
The
to pay
system
your
doesn't distinguish between blood and sweat and therefore writing a book, and therefore that's considered authors publishing, rights. By the way, there's no IP, there's only publishing rights. So it's copyright rather than IP. That and what is generated through this method, which is like instantaneous, no blood, sweat, and tears, and you don't know somebody, there is a problem there. Right now, this is a problem.
Oh, it's a fuzzy area.
Houston, there is a problem.
No, so it's a fuzzy area,
Yes.
which means it can fall either way.
Yes.
Which means he can't bet his bank on
This question is a very, very
ongoing
good
and
question,
creating
very
content.
Still have to believe.
Right.
it started from when we initially started to create content. Obviously, we would pick things from Google and then we'd change it. But then one of the things that we realized over a period of time, we have to go through very stringent plagiarism checks, especially if I am representing a brand and white labeling the content, right? Then, and yes, I'm looking at many other programs and content and then co-create and creating my content. But I want to make sure that nobody can come back and saying, oh, you're actually following word to word what I'm doing. There will be overlaps.
No, but I'm talking the other way around. Somebody else uses the same. Then can I go after and saying, sorry, I did. I did.
Till now there was a. Vijay, till now.
It's my prompt.
No, till now in colleges, there is a tolerant level of violation of copyright.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Done it.
There are only 3 books available, very expensive to import. Those 4 chapters are required for exam. Please go take photocopies. So nobody really say anything. It's all right. Even peers knew that, technically speaking, it's a violation, but it's a level of tolerance. That's all gone now. And this is like instantaneous, available to the whole world. This is unexplored territory at this point in time.
Same thing goes for marketing as well. In last 2-3 months, I'm seeing that a lot of these marketing agencies, people who were doing SEO, they are going out on Chat GPT and they are just writing all those blogs and putting it on their channel so that their SEO happens.
Right.
Now that is not helping them any which ways. Everybody is doing it. Okay, now I don't need content writers. I am just using this, but this is not helping them because it's not.
Which is in a way okay, because then that gets completely democratized. So that then is taken off the table as a distinguishing factor.
Yeah, right.
Not a bad thing.
No, but from a ranking perspective, Google does not rank it. So one of my teammates started doing it. We understood that whatever content I'm writing from Chat GPT, Google is not ranking it.
Google doesn't like it for many reasons.
Yeah. Srikantan, one quick, generalized question now. Generalized meaning that I know that violation of copyright is and protection of or plagiarization, as we have defined it so far, this is going to be the biggest issue on how you use what comes out, right? You use it for yourself, nobody's bothered.
Right.
What is the view? What is the view within Microsoft and the other companies on what risks are there for people who use this stuff? What's the guidance that you have on those risks for different categories of users?
Okay. So could you qualify what you mean by risk? The fact that they use plagiarized content and whether they are liable for
So if I'm going into a social setting and repeating everything I've heard from someone without giving attribution, nobody cares.
Okay.
Now I go and say I'm running classes and I earn money. Well, people say it doesn't matter. Then you become somebody. And at that time, whoever wants to hit you will hit you then, because he knows that when you're going up the way, it doesn't matter. So now you got into the habit of saying it doesn't matter. You don't see the risk. You become a brand and someone demolishes you in one day.
Then the emperor strikes.
So my question really is that the perception of risk. So then you have to warn users to say, beware, kind of thing. And therefore, in terms of policy or philosophy, I would say, I know that companies like Microsoft want to be mindful. How much of that is being brought in as part of the communication necessary?
Okay.
To say that when you do these things, here are things to be mindful of. Or is that also up in the air at this time because no one really knows, and therefore do you say it doesn't matter, nobody knows, like you said? Or is there something that people have to be mindful of?
Yeah, actually, I mean, sort of very honestly, I'm saying that I'm probably trying to pass the buck on this particular question. So where I am coming from is the fact that we as a platform and capabilities provider, we actually provide those capabilities, okay? And then we leave it to individual verticals and sort of entities to sort of use that and sort of create the content for themselves. And then we're equipping them to actually do all that very effectively. But the fact that how they actually post that and sort of present that and commercialize that and how do they sort of take care of the aspects that you mentioned is probably not really my forte. So I can think a lot, but I'm not sure I'll be sort of very complete or comprehensive or accurate in my
There'll be an aiding and abetting question at some point. And if it wasn't for you, I haven't done it. So I think this is the risk which people need to.
Yeah, I'm honestly actually don't have a good answer for it, but probably this is evolving and probably my sort of viewpoint gets built over a period of time. Probably I have better to share, but at this time, I think.
So your point is to use it commercially, but the point is, like he did make a point that you can get references from where it comes.
Citation.
That could be a starting point for you. Yeah. But then how many references it is checked? If it is summarized 20 people's views, the views may not be copyrightable. Maybe the big thing comes in cut and paste. Right? That is where that probably will be easier to see.
No, but that it does not do.
It does not cut and paste. Yeah, I understand. So
it interprets. And so exactly how you will read a book and if you close the book and rewrote, what you will write is what it wrote, according to me.
I think
At
down
least
the
that's
line,
what I found out.
down the line,
Also, do you
regulators
believe
will have to step up. They will have to
There
make
are
something.
already conversations.
Right. And there will be product team, those who will be working on that. So ChatGPT is a good minister. If content is the king, ChatGPT is the minister who is assisting us for the right recommendation as of now.
Srikanth, may I ask a question?
Sure.
One, this is more knowledge and also for curiosity and also from regulators, not so much as entrepreneurs. It's this: if ChatGPT GPT is trained as a transformer on gathering the world's information, and then it extracts the best out of it or what is typical out of that and presents. This majoritarianism in a way, because whatever is a view that is held by on a subject by a maximum number of people is the one that is likely to get cited, which means that minority views, and it's an anti-diversity thing, isn't it? From a thinking perspective. I'm not going into the politics of it, purely from isn't it?
True. Yeah, I agreed. So in fact, it's hard to counter what we said, and probably I don't have a very cogent response to that. It's possible, I guess. I can.
That's, I think, the real danger. I think we're talking about plagiarism, and those are mechanics that will get handled.
True.
Real danger with educational institutions and teaching, when you want to teach people critical thinking and individual. This is the thing that I'm actually getting worried about. The real issue.
Glimpses of that happened when we started using translators. And when you translate, it takes the biases of the literature available.
Right, absolutely correct.
So we have seen it play out in a very small way, where it is only translating. So the damage is very little. But when it's summarizing and the majority view is reinforced, then the damage is huge. Which,
in fact, there is a very
red GPT and blue GPT.
I was thinking quite about it in minority.
Yeah, Srikanth. Yeah, Srikanth, I have a question. I have a question related to what Sapnesh stated.
Okay.
He was talking about the ability of ChatGPT to be able to give a critique. I'm just extending that argument. Let's assume that there's an issue. For example, the use of steroids in games.
Okay.
So there are views for it and there are views against it. So unless there is a body of recorded information, textual, okay, which has information on the for part and the not for against part, ChatGPT will not be able to give an independent critique. It can only take differing views, the for and the against, and possibly from that cull out what so many people for, so many people against are giving, right? By itself, the ability to, what shall I say, raise the higher level of thinking, the critical part, I don't think is built in yet.
No.
Is that right?
I think I think I agree with what you're saying. So, but what I can also say is that it has the ability to sort of perform reinforced learning with human feedback, which means that you ask it a particular question and say, hey, do you think it's right of me to sort of use it steroids for this particular scenario? And I'm not going to compromise how it sort of affects the competitive aspect amongst my peers or whatever. And then it'll give some kind of opinion. And then you can say, hey, I think I agree with the two of what you said, but the third point which you mentioned, I disagree with you. Do you want to rework on that? Or do you want, I disagree because you're saying it in this way, and which is what I don't agree with you about. And then it goes back, okay, and then it looks at what you have sort of responded back to it. And then if it thinks it's valid and there is some reasoning behind that, it'll come back and then, hey, I think I understand what you're saying. I apologize for what I said earlier. It'll literally say that, okay. And then I think I agree with this aspect of what you're saying, but probably I'll underline it with this kind of an assumption to make sure that, and then I would say probably I agree with you. So it goes back, it is willing to sort of reconsider what it said, and then it can tailor based on how you respond to it, and then how you interact with it on an ongoing basis.
Okay, so but all that reiterating or reconstructing that the response is a very polite way of saying, I don't know.
No. I'll search some more. I'll have to reframe
it.
When you search something,
okay,
you have to reframe it and then reframe.
So it asks, why do you disagree? Based on your reply, it takes it as a cue and then searches again.
But all this refers to only recorded information, recorded knowledge. Suppose a situation comes up, as it does in everyday life, an unexpected situation where existing knowledge is not able to handle that.
You say, I don't know. Dr. Karan Singh, when he comes here will talk, very often say, I don't know.
Yes.
Then people say, then where do we look? That's your problem.
Yeah. So again, the other thing that I want to say is that it is not meant to be a corpus of information, and the information is not necessarily current. So we know that GPT-3 was trained back till data as on 2021 September. So it's obviously the latest, the recent of information is definitely not there. But when, so which is why you should not expect those kind of responses. Hey, what do you think is the latest in this particular field as on date? It will not have an answer because it is not meant to do that. So the majority of the use cases where I think probably I'm from an enterprise, so I sort of think on those lines is where I have my own corpus of information, and based on that, I want it to reason over that and come back with it. I'm not going to approach it for things like, hey, give me your opinion, and because I want to introduce that into my industry or this vertical. No, I don't think I'll do that. So I'll want it to do what it is meant and be extremely powerful for. And that's where I come from. But for the creative aspects, I think a lot of valid questions and points. And I think I don't have a clear-cut answer. I think things should evolve, and probably there's some kind of a clarity in how we should look at what it has to offer and how we should actually partake of that information.
Yeah.
One more question. Very quick.
Thank you, Srikantan.
Sure. Okay.
Perspective. Does today the system have a toolkit which does it allow for in an enterprise context to take for a particular context? Enterprise has an enormous amount of data, information pertaining to that particular context.
Okay.
Is it possible to further train or specially train GPT-4, GPT-3, GPT-4?
Okay.
Able to therefore create domain models which are highly effective and supportive. Is that possible today?
Yeah,
or
is it possible?
querying and reply. I'm talking about training.
No, it's possible.
Exactly. So let me clarify. So at this time, there are two ways in which you can use the model. The first way is that I don't need to do any training of my own. So that's the second part. I'll come to that. So when I don't need to train anything, it means that every time you make a request of it, say everything is just an API call. So you need to give it a context and then the question that goes with it. And that's how actually you ask it to come back. Okay, so that's one way, which is the most commonly used method for most of the use cases that I'm talking to different customers upon, where they glean the backend systems, give the context that is relevant to the question, and give the actual question, give to OpenAI, and ask you to come back with the reasoning on the lines of, I think, numerous examples we talked of. But then it could so happen that it's probably too cumbersome to pass the context every time. Let's say the context is going to be same all the time for that particular domain. So I incur unnecessary sort of cost because all of this sort of amounts to cost and all that. And then you say, I would like to instead train it on my own data. So we call that fine-tuning the model, where I start with the base, the DaVinci, which is a GPT-3 model, and then I package my enterprise data in a particular way and actually physically train that, okay, on this particular data and come up with a new model, customized model, where I can directly ask my question, no need to pass any context, and then it comes back with the response. So that's called fine-tuning of the model, and that definitely is possible.
Last question.
Sure.
Prompt engineering, is it a 1-year course or a 1-week course?
Yeah, in fact, that's the whole magic behind how you interact with it without customizing it. Okay, so prompt engineering is it's an art, and I think even as teams build different applications catering to different verticals, so they need to sort of explore how we can actually be innovative with those prompts to make sure that the response that could be expected probably aligns with what they want. I think it could be a course in itself. I agree.
Short course? Is it? I'm saying
it's a lifelong.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. At one level, of course, everything is lifelong. But for young college grads, is it a weekend intense 24-hour thing, or is it like, from whatever we know, whatever it means at this time?
Yeah, at this time, I think it is just picking that concept up on the fly, and I don't see it being so deep that it involves, you need, so much time or weeks or whatever. I think it's just take a use case, and then you imagine how you would interact with any other human who's an expert on the subject. How would you pose that question? And that's all that is required. And it's no major.
What I'm worried about is you'll soon see some institutions advertising a proper course in prompt engineering, a lot of youngsters joining it. That's a worry.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, actually, I never thought on those lines, but thanks for sort of giving those insights. It sets me thinking on those points as well.
It's a drill and practice. There is no art and science to it. Art and science to it.